Hey, before we begin the welcome back episode to The Art of Play Season 2, I want to make a couple notes. In this episode, I make two statements that I want to correct. First of all, I state that Breath of the Wild only had 3 physics programmers, but looking back, I can't really find a source for this. So it's fully possible there were more or less, and I might have just read it somewhere and forgot where. As well, I make a statement about the legality of including symbols like the Red Cross in your game. I should note here, though, that this is something that I read somewhere, and if you included something in your game that could cause legal issues, you should go talk to a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, I'm a university student studying math and physics, and that was not a legal opinion. You should go see a professional when it comes to legality. Rather than remove these statements and interrupt the episode, I'm just going to add this note here and let the episode flow with these corrections in place now. Anyways, I hope you enjoy, and please keep these in mind. We are students of The Art of Play.
And we do this show called The Art of Play.
A show for the players who ask, why?
I'm Vi.
And I'm Gaia.
Hey Gaia, what's on the docket for us today?
So, after, I want to say it's been 6 months since our last recording session.
Yeah, good old
We're
summer
back.
break there.
We are back. It's been a while. We took our 4-month summer.
Yeah.
We didn't record in the last month. You left for work early.
I did.
And September is a nightmare.
Yeah.
So, hello everyone who's listening to the first episode of, I guess, what's going to make season 2 of our show.
That's so exciting.
It is. We've
Yeah.
actually made it to season 2.
Yeah, which is, I think we had talked a little bit about like the stats about how long podcasts tend to last. And
Yep.
after we got over the 8-episode hump,
Yeah, it was 7 episodes. So once
Yeah.
we recorded the 8th episode,
Right.
we were kind of guaranteed to keep this going.
Yeah.
Which I'm so glad that we're back. We recorded 13 episodes that aired
Mm-hmm.
in our previous season and 1 episode that I would like to go back and re-record.
Oh, cool.
Because it was our first ever episode that we did at a distance, and I hated my mic so much. But I fixed
okay.
it. I fixed my mic. It works now.
yeah, that lets me do some upgrades to my home setup
Yeah.
too. It's an excuse to do it.
It's
Because
an excuse to buy stuff.
Yes, it very much is. I want a different boom because mine does not support my beefy home mic.
I see.
Look, if you're gonna go for the AKG like analog setup, that's great, but you cannot buy a boom that won't support it because you will break it. I have put 5 washers on the main joint of that thing, and it still does not hold the mic up.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, welcome back, everybody. We have so much in store for you for the next season and tons of topics that we'll be going over today about what you can come to expect from our next season. But before we really begin, I'd first like to give a quick roadmap of what this season is going to look like outside of the topics, how we're organizing things. And then I want to kind of take some time with you, Vi, to talk about the games that we've been playing in the last about 6 months or so. What were the best, what were the worst, if we learned anything about game design, or if there's things about game design that we're curious about. Sound good?
Yeah, I'm on board.
Yeah. So the look for this next season is going to be a little bit different from before. In season 1, we talked all about the fundamentals of game design. So ideas such as how do you handle the first 5 minutes, session 0, making narrative choices without explicitly saying them, and a lot more that if you go back to the previous season on Spotify, you'll get to listen to. But what we didn't do was talk about hardware, methods of play, the more of the background, distribution, like these really important questions that are not part of the pure design process, but are key, are fundamental to playing games and making games.
Yeah, they're the things that people talk about when they share games with other people.
Yeah.
Right? And those things I think are super important and like incredibly important. But they're not necessarily what makes a good game.
Like you as a player know when these things are done right or done wrong, but it's really hard to identify when game distribution is done correctly or when early level marketing is done correctly, although you tend to be able to see that one a little bit more. Or did they put this game on the right hardware? Did they mesh it to the hardware? Only the biggest of PC nerds know that for like PC porting. So in this season, we want to get down to some of those fundamentals of beyond just the pure design, beyond the decisions made on how a game should look, how a game should feel. There's the question of, outside of this, what do we do?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this as like if you go into an art museum and you view a painting on the wall, that's kind of what we've talked about, right? The finished product. How does that feel? How does that make you feel?
Yeah, we've
That sort of
analyzed the
thing.
painting.
Yes, but we've never talked about really the method to getting there, right? And we've never talked about differences between like watercolor or oil or whatever else, which in this case would be like the mediums of different consoles and stuff.
Yeah.
We really haven't talked about that.
And we haven't talked about the museum, the distribution itself.
Yeah.
Where does the game go? How do you make a game fit in? There's a whole topic we could do about release schedules that we haven't got into, and the fact,
yeah.
like, why don't developers delay games when they're buggy? Because they would have to delay them 6 months or more.
We also haven't talked about the people in the museum. Like, we haven't talked about the gaming community at large either.
I'm honestly terrified to talk about the community. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, there's some wonderful things that we could talk about in there. Like, we've never really talked about cosplay, LARPing. We've never talked about like how things become popular, right? Like we've talked briefly about, I think we've mentioned like the D&D Renaissance for 5th edition, but we've never really
it came
like
up for like 5 minutes in an episode.
yeah, we've
once.
never done a deep dive there, so that'll be an episode.
Yeah. So for this next season, that's what you as a listener can come to expect. And we have some wonderful topics. Soon, I think our first episode after this one, you're going to be hearing a bit about game engines and the topic of Unity. Boom, boom, boom. Like, play the sound effect. Like, you're going to hear about the absolute mess that has been the Unity engine, the Unity release plans, and monetization going forwards. But we also have some topics on the weird world of exercise games, which is something that no one thinks about and is always my favorite episode. I love talking about exercise games. We have
You say as though we've done a show like this before about exercise games.
I've talked with my friends about it a lot, and I think exercise games is actually my favorite topic. Like, genuinely my favorite topic in game design right now, after
Yeah.
our depth versus complexity episode that started the show, is exercise games.
Oh, cool.
Which is like a weird little fact. I think they're funky little things. I like them a
Yeah.
lot. We also have the question of what makes a successful launch in gaming. How do you release a game and have it work? Because oh boy, is that hard, and oh boy, I don't know yet. So that's going to be one of our research-heavy episodes. There's also the question of are demos worth it for game devs? Is it worth producing demos? And what is the demo trap for game development? Because there's actually a really well-studied aspect of demos on how you can sync a game by making demos. And not in the way that you as a listener might expect either. Like, there's a lot.
There's a whole episode's worth.
There's a
you
whole
might
episode's
say.
worth there.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we have lots of topics coming for you in the season.
And we're gonna have
many more.
More episodes this year. I think our goal is to at least do like an extra third in total number of episodes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's 16 weeks in a average semester. Well, 18 weeks in an average semester.
Mm-hmm.
Usually 16 available weeks. We've lost September because September sucks. So we're going to be looking at trying to produce up to a maximum of 24 episodes, which is ambitious.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, fun.
Yes. But on the other hand, we did a whole season and now season 2. Why
Yeah,
not?
we're back.
Yeah, why not try to push it a little bit more now that we understand what we're doing?
And you, as a listener, should also expect to hear from some guests more often on our show as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
So we're primarily, especially these first few episodes, are going to probably be Vi and I doing our back and forth, talking about topics that interest us. But there's going to be times where there are things that we don't know or things that research can't help us with. I had one of my friends recently begin connecting me with game developers here in Atlanta, Canada. And I am going to be seeing if I can get them to come in for an episode. I got a game dev team from PEI that I'm going to be connecting with soon. And I'm going to see if I can contact some game developers in the Halifax region. So you as a listener should expect to get some developer insight. But don't worry, the show is still about players and for players. But developers can help us understand why they make decisions they make that might feel counterintuitive to us as players.
Definitely. It's all things that go into making a good game.
Exactly. And that's going to become especially true in our engine episode about why do they make the decisions they do? Why are these decisions so counterintuitive and yet made so often?
Yeah, and it's one of those places where like the gaming community intersects with like business interests, and then we get just weird decisions. Like the thing that comes back to me all the time is that like Wizards of the Coast update
Oh my
that
gosh,
happened last year, where it was like, why are you doing that? Like the whole gaming community went, what is happening here? This is the antithesis of what D&D used to be, because D&D kind of has a history of like borrowing other people's books, like. Maybe,
It was built off the
yeah.
Elder Scrolls, wasn't it? Or no, so that was the other way around. Elder Scrolls was built off D&D.
Well, I'm thinking more like the community is very like open to like sharing resources and doing homebrew stuff and just like customizing the game to the way you want to play it, right? And to have somebody come in and be like, D&D Beyond is going to be worse.
Everything is going
Everything
to
is
be
gonna be worse.
Licensing is going to be you now have to pay to do homebrew.
Yes.
Like that that was effectively what it was, right? Like
Yeah.
Any derivative media off of D&D will be charged. It was like when Skyrim did paid mods. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember that from like 2016? Paid modding?
No, because I wasn't in the gaming community, but that sounds terrible.
Yeah. So as like a mention on that, back in like 2015, 2016, Bethesda and Steam announced a partnership where they were going to make it possible to monetize mods on the Skyrim Workshop, which sounds like a good idea for like modders being like, hey, I can now charge for my mod.
Yeah.
But if someone's paying for your product, you now have to guarantee the product works
Oh.
in mods and works with the other paid material. Do you see the problem?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it became a absolute mess. I think talking about the history of game monetization will be a fun episode we could do at some point.
Yeah.
There's so much in this episode or in this season that we'll be able to get into.
Yeah, and
I'm
I
so
think
excited
I think
for
part
it.
of that episode we can definitely cover stuff like, hey, when you used to buy a physical game, you didn't then have to download a bunch of stuff on top of it. It was like when you release a game and it's a physical copy, for a lot of reasons, including remote communities, you should not have to have internet access to play that game.
One big thing that happened is the ability to change things on the fly now has removed liability in lawsuits. Fun fact, you can't put the Red Cross in your video game. That is a international level crime. And many developers have made that mistake. And prior to being able to change it just in an update for every
Yeah.
game,
Yeah.
it's bad. So
It's bad.
there's pros and cons
yeah.
to the online only access, to Nuvo and stuff like that, which we'll be able to go into. But before we do all that, it's been a long time. And I think I would love to sit down with you, Vi, for this episode. 11 minutes in, finally saying what we're doing today. I want to talk about what we did this past summer. Like the games that we played, the experiences that we had. It doesn't have to be only games. I'm going to take a little while to talk about my previous podcast for those who are interested.
Yeah.
But I want to pose the question for you of what games have you been playing since we last spoke?
Now, we've talked about this a little bit because I tend to play one thing and I tend to just play it.
You marathon games.
I marathon games, but I marathon them in such a completionist way where I'm like, I'm going to poke in every dark corner until I find everything that this little area has to offer me, which often like leads me to encountering the place that a side quest is supposed to happen before I have the side quest that is supposed to send me that place.
Remember when we talked about identifying player types in games, and there were 4 types, and one of them was the explorer who doesn't do the quest and just goes to every location to see it?
That's me.
I think you have just announced your player type to the community.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have declared your allegiance.
Yes, if anyone ever looks at my Steam profile and goes, why have you been playing Baldur's Gate 3 only for several hours? That's why. I am screwing around and making some dumb decisions.
You're doing some fun exploring and
Oh,
not
yeah.
playing the game.
No.
One of my friends, one of our mutual friends, Noel, who was a voice actor in my previous podcast, so I can talk about them, has made, I want to say 7 save files in Baldur's Gate and has not passed the first act.
Yeah, I'm about to pass the first act.
Yeah, but they've done it 7 times and have not passed the first act.
See, okay, I'm not quite there. I'm not quite there.
They also have not explored everything like you have. They have just made 7
they've just
different
made
characters.
Oh, yeah, and then done 7 different like
Styles of
paths.
run-throughs.
Okay,
and
that's fair.
But they're not finishing the acts at all. They're just playing until they get bored and make a new character
No,
type.
no. See, I want to experience the story, but I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything.
The Assassin's Creed problem.
Yeah, very much so. That's why I DNF'd a lot of the Assassin's Creed games, is that I would get too deep into corners, and then I'd be like, okay, wait, I can't. I will never finish this game.
In what game did you pick up DNF as a quick way for saying did not finish?
Book Talk?
Okay, because I picked it up from Guitar Hero.
Oh my god, okay.
I
Yeah,
think,
fair enough.
or maybe Clone Hero now, but
Yeah, no, I definitely picked it up.
I was
from-
not ready to hear DNF. I guess it's a sports term as well, though.
I don't know that it is. I picked
it is
up.
for people who do like marathons. Did
Fair
not
enough.
finish.
Yeah. I just picked it up from Book Talk because people would be like, I DNF'd this book. And I was like, that's actually really good because I've done that.
I
Yeah.
love the term DNF, but every time I hear it, I'm like, okay, what flavor of nerd are you?
Several.
Several.
A non-zero amount of different qualities. Yeah, so I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3.
Let's hear about it.
Oh, there's so many good things. I think the first thing I need to talk about is the fact that, like, apparently Paladin and there's one other class are, like, the most played classes in Baldur's Gate.
People just want to be the wall.
Yeah, and so here's the thing. The way the game is set up, maybe we should hang on. Let's backtrack a little bit. Baldur's Gate 3 is essentially a video game that is D&D. Like, that is it. They have set up a narrative. They have created, like, you're playing in the, like, Wizards of the Coast, like, Faerun world. working
Talking
through
back on how D&D is kind of its own little platform for making content.
Yeah.
This whole game is
is
in the
this.
D&D platform.
Yes. So you roll for choices. Your fights are based on like rolls. The computer makes choices for you. But you're still making choices, right? So it's kind of a point and click kind of. Anyway, but you start off by making a character, and then you're thrown into a situation, and you like explore the world based on a number of factors, and there's like companions that can come with you. So you play as a party of 4. But as a player, you are playing as 4 characters, but you
Right.
always have your main character that you make in character
And
creation.
you can bring in other people for multiplayer to be one of those 4 as well.
Yeah.
So you can have 4 just, I don't want to say idiots running around in circles, but 90% of the time, 4 idiots running around in circles.
circles. Yeah. One thing I'll say is I really appreciate that you can toggle group mode on and off. So you can like just play as your guy and then walk through the world, and they just sort of follow you in.
So they're like AI controlled?
Yeah.
Oh,
kind of.
that's
Yeah.
always how I would play it.
Yeah.
That's how I played Persona.
Well, okay, but you can also toggle it off. So, like, if you're doing sneaky stuff, you can have this one player go over here and kill these guys. You can have this other character go over here and kill these guys.
So you can choose if you want to control the
Yes.
computer characters or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I played Persona, and all of my friends got so mad at me because I was like in like the final dungeon with them still self-controlled or like controlling themselves as AI, making horrible decisions, causing me to get killed so often. And
Yeah.
all my friends were like, "Please turn off AI mode."
Yeah.
And I didn't do it until the final dungeon because it was so fun to be part of a team of like actual teenagers
Yeah.
with the intelligence of teenagers.
Where
It
they're
was
just
pain.
making dumb choices.
I did turn
Yeah.
it off though because at that point I was fighting like the final boss.
There are some levels I've encountered where like the floor will be on fire, and I'm like, okay, my character's gonna jump, and then one of the other characters will like walk through the fire, and I'm like, that's the worst choice you could have made there.
There's
Like,
literally
you
no
just-
worse choice.
Or I'll turn around and watch them all each jump over the fire, and then one of them will screw it up in some way where they'll still land in fire, and I'm like, how did you do that? Like, anyway, very fun because your narrative choices have consequences, right? Like if you get just a little bit too sneaky, like, and you're like, oh, this door's locked, let me unlock it, and there's like a guy in there, like you're going to jail, right? Like, and then you have to break yourself out of jail. Like there is a very, like, there are consequences, and there have been times where like there's been a consequence to my action, and I'm like, oh, I could either play my way out of this, which could be fun, except that I'm in a dungeon with 2 health and no weapons, or I could just go load a save file and try it again.
Save's coming.
Yeah. So there's times where I'm like, this was a dumb decision, but I'm going to stand by it just because I think it's fun. And there's times where I'm like, I'm just like, it's 11 o'clock at night and I just want to finish this side quest. Like I will be.
Oh, the one more turn fallacy.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Let me just try it one more. Let me try this boss fight one more time.
And then it's 3 a.m.
Yes.
Always.
Always. Anyway, but it's very fun to play. Sorry, the thing that I said at the beginning was like a lot of people are playing paladins, which is my go-to like D&D character build.
Oh, I could never play a paladin.
Anyway, so I like when I was doing character creation, which by the way took me a lot less time than I thought it was going to. Like I've heard about people playing like the character creation for like 5 hours.
Me. That's me. That's always me.
No, I was like, I just want to be myself, but big and strong. Like,
My favorite way to do character creation is to keep hitting random until I find my favorite, and that sometimes takes genuinely an hour.
yeah, that's fun. Yeah, no, I was just like, I just made a person and then went, what class is this person? And that person happened to be, I like was looking at them and I was like, that's a druid right there. So I'm playing as a druid, which is like a support character and makes me want to, I know you can change your class. Anybody who's going to come at me in the comments, don't. I know that you can
Don't.
change your class.
Don't come at me.
I do really like being able to become a wolf. There are things about like the druid, like dialogue choices that I also really appreciate because you get like, you know, there's your normal options of dialogue, and then sometimes you'll get one that's like background druid, and you only get that if your background is druid.
I feel like that's true for all of the classes, though. I feel like every class has a
has
background.
a different
Yeah,
one.
okay, yeah.
But I like the choices that druid offers, right? Because
Okay,
a lot
so
of
you
the
are
time,
a druid enjoyer.
yes,
Okay.
a lot of the time, I want that as a shirt.
A druid enjoyer.
Druid enjoyer would
Would
be
that be
really
our first
good.
show merch?
Oh my gosh, we do show merch.
We do not have enough viewers from show merch.
It's just me. I want this shirt. I'll put our logo on the front and I'll wear it. That'll be really good. That's so funny. So, yeah, I really enjoy the choices that I get as a druid. And, like, I know that you can, you know, kind of use wild shape-esque spells in other classes. Well aware. I do really enjoy being able to become just like a wolf for combat. Because that's...
It is a role-playing game, and I want to role-play as a wolf.
Sometimes you just want to be the cat. Like, look, like there was one at one point. There's like a toll. What is like a toll
bridge?
booth like gatehouse thing.
Yeah.
And there's like two people in there. But I was like, I want to explore everything before I go in and explode the room to kill these two people. So I was like, okay, if I send one of the characters in the back door, make that person like use sleep on this person, I can then go down the trap door with my sneaky guy. But that trap door is in the room with these two people that I need to kill. So I sent my character, my druid, in as a cat into the far side of the room because you can just do that because they're like whatever cat. But then you can meow, and when you meow, the other people get distracted. And so they will turn and look at you. So you have this moment where you can send your, like, thief in, or my rogue, like, in the bottom, like, into the trap door. And then, because you're not in group mode, you can just screw around in different places.
Right.
Fan-freaking-tastic. It makes my life, I love it. And you can also romance characters, which is entertaining in a way that I didn't think it was going to be. Because I was like, yeah, I'll just play this game, you know, and just, like, not romance characters. But you actually learn more about each character's, like, narrative, which gives you more game to play if you do romance them.
Oh.
Which is so good. So if you romance the vampire rogue guy, which I, like, full disclosure, I have.
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure, I think
reporting myself on mic.
On mic, I just want to say, I think he's great and he's very funny. And his dialogue when you go to talk to him as, like, someone who is romancing him is so much more fun because he, like, makes fun of you and teases you, and it's just, like, it's a great time. Anyway.
I see why this game is enjoyed so much by the Tumblr audience.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, fair enough. I hate to lump myself in with that group, but yeah. Yes, but, like, you learn that he has, like, scars on his back if you take the romance option with him, which I'm sure you might get somehow a different way. Maybe you wouldn't. And I don't know. So I've all, like, the one thing I really am enjoying about Baldur's Gate is that I am thinking about how I will play the next run through while I'm playing this one. So I'll encounter a choice and be like, ooh, that could be a really fun way to go. Or, like, I definitely have left loose threads, which really bothers me. Because I'm like, I want to progress the game, so I go do a main quest thing, but then I lose side quest things. Like, there are oxen who are definitely straight up people who have been, like, transformed into ox, and I just left that untouched because I was like, I don't have time for this. I'm going to go do this other thing.
Right.
And so, like, next time, what the hell's happening over there?
Are you able to go back and do it, or is that, like, locked out?
It's locked out after you make a choice that, like, locks out that area.
Okay, so I know a few games have done that, and I really don't like that.
Well, it's not that it, like, locks. I think there might be a way to go back and figure it out, but it's like when you go back to this area after going and doing this other thing, that area has changed because you have impacted what they're able to do. Like, these refugees can now leave this area.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
Like the community that you walked into and triggered these side quests in doesn't exist anymore, right?
Right.
So I can go back and fix that.
So there's some things, sometimes you can go back, sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
Once you do something that alters the area with the side quest, you run the risk of losing it.
You run the risk of losing it. So there was one leader of this one area who was, like, kind of crooked. And I did my sneaky little thing, and I found a note that someone was like, go meet me by the swamp or the docks or something. And I never got to explore that because I just went and found the proper druid leader of that group. and I just brought him back to be like, fix it.
Oh, right.
And so now that he's fixed it and she's not a problem anymore, I can't go like follow her to this meeting because the meeting doesn't exist anymore because she's not in power anymore.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
See, that makes so much sense, but I've always hated that form of design because it kind of always forces you to do all the side quests at once without progressing the game, which is exhausting.
Yeah, there are aspects of it that are a little bit like that. But
I find it's becoming more and more common, and I don't know. I have opinions as a person that don't line up with my opinions as a person talking about game design.
Sure.
And personally, I hate it when games do that, but I recognize that it's not a bad design decision because it makes the world actually feel real.
Yeah.
It just, for me, as someone who does like to complete my games, it suddenly makes me feel like I have no choice but to do one quest mission and then 100 side quests before I do the next quest mission, which is exhausting as someone who wants to experience the main story.
The other thing I'll say is I don't feel overwhelmed by the side quests.
Ooh.
As I encounter them, I'm like, ooh, okay, that one's going to be really fun. Let me go do that. And also they're like open enough that it's like different areas of different side quests, but like you can definitely come back to them. But like Breath of the Wild, right, has main quests that are tagged as main quests. And then side quest things that are tagged as side quests.
Yeah, I found that
Baldur's
recently because I
Gate
recently got back to the game.
doesn't have that. Everything is just a quest line, right?
Oh.
And some things have like smaller impacts because they're very clearly like side quest. And some of them are bigger because they're like, maybe they're related to like one of your companions, right? Like if you want to follow, like I am really super curious about Shadowheart's whole arc. I like hate playing with her as a companion because she's a cleric and it's just terrible. Like, or maybe I just haven't figured out how to properly play with a cleric in the party.
Right, which is fully possible.
Which is
clerics in D&D are weird.
Yeah, which is totally fair. Like that could be a me thing. But she always dies and I'm always like, you're the person who can resurrect people and you keep dying.
So you have to like keep her in the back away from combat.
Yeah.
And then there's always the risk of her getting ambushed.
Yeah.
There's no good way to protect the back line.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a little bit frustrating. And also because I don't play like super strategically, I'm like, I don't know, okay, heavy hitters in the front and, you know, and then I'll stick my rogue up on the highest ground I can find and be like, every turn you're going to hide and then you're going to bonus action hide and then sneak attack with like a ranged weapon. Like
right.
That rocks. Like that whole thing.
Pure D&D as well.
Pure D&D.
Pure D&D
like,
cheese.
Like it's exactly like I know how to play as this, right? I get it. But I'm really interested in her character, so I keep having her stick around, even though I don't find her super useful in combat, which I think is also one of those like D&D things where it's like
that's such a D&D decision.
It's such a D&D
you
decision.
You keep that one player who's way more in for like the lore and the roleplay, even though they suck at combat.
Yeah, or like combat is not like a super heavy thing. So like when there's like lore stuff and like quest stuff, I'm like so into it. And then when a fight happens, like I'm the kind of player who's like, oh, okay, all right, fight. Like I do find it enjoyable because I like watching it. Like I love like the animations, like it's gorgeous. Like I love the art style of it. It's very fun for me.
Yeah.
Right. And like I love the consequences that happen. But sometimes there's like mechanical things where like, okay, well that missed twice. It's like that just doesn't feel statistically likely.
Right. And
even though it super
like,
is.
Yeah, it's D&D style statistical likely, but it feels bad.
It feels bad.
It feels really bad.
Yeah. Like usually as a DM, like if somebody misses, somebody at the table will usually be like, oh, can I help in some way? And then something more fun will happen out of that conversation that we're like I was just watching Dimension 20 and one of the characters went, can I just kick him in the chest? Like he had this whole monologue of like, don't talk about my father that way, et cetera, et cetera. And then I'm just going to kick him in the chest. And the whole table's like, yeah, hell yeah. Like, I love that. But then he failed the check. And then one of the other characters was like, can I rage and then throw him just to make the distance shorter so that this can happen? And Brennan's like, oh, man, of course. Like, you, like, give me an athletics check. Okay, if you pass that, now you can roll with advantage. Right?
Right.
To try to make that action successful. And Baldur's Gate is like, if you miss, next turn.
It's really hard to program that, though.
Oh,
like,
totally.
It's there's no good way to program bending the rules a little bit to make
Yes,
things more fun.
because that is not how computers work.
That is not how games work in the slightest.
Yeah. So anyway, great game. I've also played Tears of the Kingdom a little bit.
Yeah.
We've chatted a little bit about this. I'm finding Tears of the Kingdom harder to get into
Yeah.
because I had the Breath of the Wild mechanics on lock like so well, and then Tears of the Kingdom is like, here's some new mechanics. And I'm like, and they're stumbly and they're a little bit clunky.
Yeah. I mean, they're clunky because most of them are custom building, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is inherently a clunky game design idea.
Yeah, like stuff doesn't happen smoothly. But I do appreciate that they saw that the community was like kind of doing sort of custom building, like they were kind of playing with the physics of stuff.
So they're like,
And
what
so
if we
they
made
were
a
like,
physics game?
What if we made a physics game? But I don't want a physics game. I just want Breath of the Wild more.
Right. I
and
mean,
then-
Breath of the Wild had 2 different DLC packs, right?
Just one.
No, it had 2. There were 2. Did you not get the second one? So keep going. I'm going to look this up.
Okay. I must have bought both of them. There's no way that I didn't. But I also didn't know there was another one.
Well, there was one expansion pass that had 2 DLC packs in it.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
no,
yeah.
there were
So
two. There were 2 DLC.
Yeah, they're 2 DLCs, but I bought the thing that had both of them. Okay, fair enough. My other thing is I just have this qualm about Zelda being the damsel in distress all the time.
I remember you mentioning, yeah.
Because we keep, like, she's so powerful, and we keep learning how powerful she is by being, like, the chosen one. And especially, like, in Breath of the Wild, like, we're not rescuing her, we're just finishing the thing that she started.
Yeah, so she
right?
was for 100 years keeping Ganon, quote unquote,
Yeah.
Calamity Ganon, at bay
She's
in the castle.
literally been fighting him for 100
not really
years.
fighting, more like caging him. Like
Yeah.
trying to keep him in. He's been slowly expanding, slowly breaking that cage.
Yeah,
throughout
and so
the
she's
game.
been, like, rebuilding the cage, like, magically for
Yeah.
100 years.
Yeah,
right?
100 years of combat to keep him back while you, Link,
Screw around and collect crickets.
while
like,
you're coming back to life
Yeah.
early on. Like while you're being resurrected in the Shrine of Resurrection.
Yes.
So that you can come out, regain your power, regain your memories, screw around with Koroks, and go defeat Calamity Ganon using what
Yeah.
you've gained.
Yes. And I kind of thought that the next step for Breath of the Wild would be to be like, now you get to have Zelda. Because the end of Breath of the Wild is like you and Zelda going off to, like, I think you're going back to.
It's pretty much them promising now you will have Zelda at the end.
It's like Zelda pulls out her Sheikah Slate and she's like, we need to go this way because we have to go talk to, like, the Zora about something.
Right.
Right? And then they, like, ride off into the sunset. And so I was fully ready for them to pick up that narrative thread.
And it feels like they would. It really felt like the next game would be continuing. And it
Yeah.
does in the opening cutscene.
Well, and the thing is it also does when you talk about, like, the devs loving the game so much, they put out 2 DLCs,
Yeah.
right? Like, they wanted to make so much more game that they were like, the DLCs were actually us being like, oh, we could do more here, right? Like, we have so many more ideas
Right.
that we made a whole bunch of DLC and realized that we had so much more to say about this game that we wanted to do a second one. Like,
Yeah.
that's why we have a sequel, is because they liked working on the first one so much.
Yeah, I mean, like like you've seen the physics engine in that game.
Yeah.
Obviously, people cared. Also, Breath of the Wild only had 3 physics programmers.
That doesn't compute for me.
Tears of the Kingdom had more than Breath of the Wild, and they were using the same engine. Like, this sounds wild. There were just some absolute gods in physics. I it might be 4 instead of 3, but it was like such a small number that I was in shock.
Yeah.
Because they probably were working on that physics engine years before the game started development.
Oh, totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Which means you don't need a lot of people. You need really good people with a lot of time. Right?
Yeah.
And apparently they got the best that exists looking at the physics in that game. Lord.
Yeah, and you can see it in the game. Like, when you launch stuff, it goes where you figure it should go. Like, it
works. It's good
yeah.
physics. So I would like to jump in here and talk about some of my games.
Oh,
over
of
this
course.
past
I
summer.
was just going to throw it
So
back to you.
I've played a lot of games this summer, but not a lot of new games. So to talk about some of them, on the Nintendo Switch, I picked up 3 games this summer. So first of all, I picked up Mario Kart 8, which, what do you want me to say? It's Mario Kart 8. It's fun. I play it with friends. I screw around and I play Link on the Master Cycle Zero, and that's all I do.
Yeah.
It is a suboptimal build in literally every way, and I love it.
Yeah, it's just Mario Kart.
I am not playing on a competitive level.
Yep.
I do like 200cc though, and everybody except one of my friends hates me for it.
Well, I don't know what to tell you there, but Mario Kart's a classic, and when they do a new one just with their updated characters,
yeah, I mean,
works.
they're still releasing DLC. The last DLC pack doesn't come out for another month.
Yeah.
Right? Like the expansion. It's wild. That game is massive now. Yeah. It's 2 Mario Kart games for the price of 1.5, which is pretty good.
Nice.
So I also picked up Octopath Traveler, which is a game that we have not had the chance to talk about, and we will not have the chance to talk about because I am nowhere near far enough through that game.
Oh, I see.
Octopath Traveler, as a quick rundown, is a early Final Fantasy, so Final Fantasy VI-esque, so still like the top-down pixelated style. RPG where there are 8 characters with 8 individual plot lines that all meet up in one party because they're people going on very long adventures, and they find other people going on long adventures, and they're like, can we do them together? Probably. Let's find out. Now,
much more enjoyable to do hard things with other people.
Yes, I will add that I actually have a lot of criticisms of the game because of that. Because, let me ask you a question. How hard is it to write one coherent, solid, long story for a game?
Like, it must be near impossible.
Yeah, how hard is it to write 8?
Yeah.
Do you see the problem?
Yeah.
So all the stories, I'm only through the first act of 6 of the 8 characters, which is why I don't have much to say. But so far, it is feeling shallow because of that.
Mm-hmm.
But the variety is really high, and the interactions between the characters is actually a shining point in the game.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you really have to be down for, you're here for the ride, they're here for the adventure.
Yeah.
They're here for the end point. But you as the player are here for the ride with all of them.
Well, this again feels like D&D again. Like, it is like you are playing in a group of people, and sometimes it's not going to be about you or your favorite character, and you just have to be okay with that.
It does have, and I really want to talk about this as one of my favorite game design decisions I've ever seen in an RPG. Every turn that you attack, you gain 1 charge point. Okay? And on a given turn, you can use up to 3 charge points to power up your attack and increase your number of attacks that turn by 1, but they all have to be the same attack. So if you're 4 turns in and you've just been slicing and dicing, or you're on turn 4 now, you can choose your strongest weapon, hit R1 or R bumper or whatever 3 times, and they just get this like holy light around them of God like shining down with flames, and they just do 4 of that attack in a row at high speed and just demolish whoever you're fighting, because they get bonus damage every time you do it.
Yeah.
So you're there doing like 2 times damage, 4 attacks in 1 turn, just demolishing the person in front of you.
Fun.
You can do it on the spells as well, but it doesn't increase the number of times you cast it. It just makes the spell stronger. So it's more fun on the melee attacks because you have this one archer who's been like doing like normal shots, and out of nowhere they just shotgun shoot 4 arrows at a time straight into one character.
Beautiful.
And that character just turns to dust.
Yeah,
Because when they die in that game, they turn into like a cloud of dust. That's the death animation.
Nice.
Which is so you're just like dice someone into dust. It's great.
I love that. I was just thinking about this, and there is a really interesting dichotomy between like magic characters and like characters who mainly fight in like a melee style in video games. Like, because I think video games, when you go into like the history of them, like a melee fighter is kind of the default, right?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Hey, guy with sword, right? That's what we're gonna do. It's really hard to kind of play like a single player RPG where you are playing one character in that kind of setting as a magic user.
Yeah.
Right? They don't lend each other, like it doesn't lend itself well to the style.
I will add that in Octopath, yes, you have a party of 4, but I actually really like how they made their mages because, first of all, they can just attack with their staff if they need to do something. And spells do use mana, and I've always hated that mana is like its own resource. And there's no cantrips, so there's no free spells. But the spell, like, it's really easy to regain mana in that game. And your spells still feel versatile because there's different types of magic, of course, but it feels like each spell just feels like a weapon class. But instead of increasing your number of attacks, you increase the power of your attacks a lot more. So are you going quality or quantity? And they still have their melee attack. And everybody has abilities that are not magic but are effectively magic in that game. Like the merchant has very specific merchant abilities and also wind spells. Because, wind in the sails because they're
Yeah.
an ocean-faring merchant, right?
I really enjoy that. Can I
Yeah.
jot that down for a character real quick?
Doing wind magic as a
Wind
merchant.
magic as a merchant is very fun.
It's an amazing idea.
Actually, yeah. Sorry, real quick. D&D character who is a sailor, who is sort of a trader merchant person,
But actually, a spell
a
sword.
spell. Yeah,
Yeah, no, that'd be really good. I'd love that.
that'd be really
idea.
fun. I
They'd
really
have to be
like
like
that.
sorcerer.
Okay,
But
new D&D game.
yeah, that's gonna be fun. But other characters like the cleric has light magic
Yeah,
and dark magic,
yeah,
which I love the idea of a cleric being of life and death, not just of life.
Yeah.
Which is really fun to me.
That is Shadowheart in Baldur's Gate.
Yeah. It's just great.
Like she is like trickster cleric.
Mm-hmm.
So she has spells that are like necrotic. What is it? Necrotic touch.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then also all of the healing and whatever.
Yeah. No, I love the design decisions. It's been a very fun game. And more like big for me as someone who first started playing is it's pixelated in like the Final Fantasy VI style. So like Kafka, right? With like it's at like a isometric view, so 2.5D from above.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
like pixelated.
Top tier game design.
But the lighting engine is modern. So the shading, the shadows, the lens flares, all of it is modern.
That's very
lens
good.
On a pixelated game. And like even my dad, who was like in his like 60s now, he just turned 60, was looking at the game and being like, "That's impressive."
Yeah.
Because he played pixelated games growing up, right?
I've told you that my
think about
dad played Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Like that still blows my mind.
Yeah,
For,
I've
like,
been wanting to go back to play the original for a long time. I want to play Final Fantasy 3 for a while, and I know it's garbage.
I made my family get like D&D Discord accounts so that I could do like home D&D games.
Yeah.
Like so we'd have a place for files and links and stuff that wasn't our like family text chat. And my dad's avatar to this day is a Final Fantasy character.
I love that.
Like it's just so good. He went, "Who do I want? This guy."
This one character.
Yeah.
Love that.
That's very good.
So I played that, and the final game I picked up was Crash Bandicoot. And
Yeah.
there's nothing to say about that. I'm not even like halfway through the game. Like it's gonna take me a while before I can talk about that game.
First syllable of that game is all you need to know about it.
Yep.
Yep.
I feel like I have crashed and burned. So
good.
some other games that I've been playing lately. So I recently picked up the Halo Master Chief Collection, and I'm not far enough to talk about Halo. I'm playing Halo Reach as my first game because in terms of the storyline, it is first because it's a prequel to the events of Halo.
Right.
But it's not the first game. But because they remastered the original Halos, Reach is like the first one they chose not to remaster or something like that. Like they didn't improve greatly. So it does feel like a good starting point in terms of fidelity and style and stuff like that. I've been playing Civ. We all probably expected that. I played Bloons TD6 because that game is great and we've not talked about it on the show at all. And I have over 100 hours in that game.
That's a lot of hours.
I have it on 2 devices. I bought it twice so I could have it on my phone as well. I have put an abnormal number of hours into Bloons TD6. But we haven't talked about it, despite me thinking it's actually one of the most well-designed games I've played. And also, it is the only game to have ever crashed my computer. I just need a dramatic pause. I've crashed my computer at Bloons and only Bloons.
Your computer's massive.
Yes.
And that actually genuinely frightens me.
Yeah, Bloons is the only game I know of that can crash my computer, and it has also crashed my phone.
How many gigs of RAM do you have on your computer?
16.
Okay.
Which is a lot.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
that's a lot.
Like,
It's chunky.
yep, and Bloons is the only game that can break it. If you're curious, it's because the way the game calculates damage, when you have 100 monkeys doing 1,000 attacks every second, and it has to calculate damage for all of them, and they buff each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's the damage calculation, which is hilarious that it's not the 1,000 animations playing at the same time.
No.
It
It's
can
the
handle
math.
that fine.
Yeah.
Because when it loads the animations and it loads them on top of each other, it deletes the one below.
Oh, perfect.
Like temporary or something like
Yeah.
that. Like so animations that overlap or something. They have it. The graphics are actually really well optimized.
Yeah,
it's
like
damage
the
calculation.
graphic that you can't see isn't running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the graphic calculation that's horrible. Other games. I put hundreds of hours this summer into Stellaris. That RTS, like real-time strategy space game released by what was the company that made it? It's Paradox. Paradox Games made it. The same developers as Hearts of Iron. It is probably one of my favorite RTS games ever made, and I don't actually think it's an amazing game. I think it's a game that I hyperfixated on really well.
Yeah, fair enough.
Right? Love the game though. Highly recommend Stellaris if you're into RTS games. It'll come up when we bring up RTS games now because I have played. So I played it back a few years ago and played like 70 hours of it, and then started the next semester and forgot that I played the game entirely. Like, it entered and exited my memory at that speed. It was a mental health game, apparently. Now that I've gone back and played over 100 more hours, I can say a lot about Stellaris. I can say a lot of good, I can say a lot of neutral, and a little bit of bad.
Okay.
But overall, if you like RTS games, go play Age of Empires first, then play this second. This game is also overwhelming as hell and is one massive spreadsheet of a game in many ways. Age of Empires is not.
Yeah.
What else have I played? I played Fall Guys a bit because why not? I launched up and nearly finished another Stardew World because why not at this point? Every time we do an episode, I've played another game of Stardew.
I think I know I've talked about this before. I have never finished a game of Stardew, and I think it's just because I can't stand simulation farming.
I have 544 hours in this game.
Yeah, I think I just don't enjoy the pace of it. Like, I want to do things, and I want things to happen quickly, and the fact that, like, you kind of can't.
You can speedrun Stardew. It's fully possible.
Interesting.
But you need to look up the strats, right?
Yeah, but, like, it's, like, the thing about games that I can progress through very quickly when I feel like I need to feel progress,
Right.
that's what I want. And Stardew, I have never, ever felt like I am making progress.
Yeah.
Like, it's very, like, because of just, like, I know it's
the progress in that game is very nebulous, and the only really
Yeah.
good tracker progress is the community center, and sometimes that's a really hard tracker.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there isn't a clear metric for how progress works in that game.
Though there
which
is
why
one in the back end. There is actually a background metric for
Oh, I'm sure there
progress.
is. But you don't see it as a player.
You can, but it's hard.
Yeah.
Again, it's another one of like, you're not meant to be focused on progress in that game, and that's
Exactly.
the problem.
And the thing about gaming is I want to feel progress. Like, that's why I sit
Tip
down
one,
and play a game.
get as much money as you can before Spring 13 so that you can buy as many strawberries as possible and get rich. That's how I play every game. I have played every single one like that since my second save file. Other games I played a bunch of Valheim with my friends, and then we stopped playing Valheim as friends. So, yeah, I have a world in Valheim that is like 20% complete, and I will probably never touch that again.
Yeah.
I played and finished Sniper Elite 4, so I have a lot to say about that. Mainly bullet physics. A good game. Genuinely really good game. I played a lot of Humankind, amazing Civ clone that kind of got review bombed when it first came out because it wasn't a perfect Civ clone, and everybody just wants Civ nowadays. But actually amazing game, huge fan of it. I played V Rising, which is a vampire game. I don't know what else you want me to say. It's like an MMO, but vampire.
Didn't you also play Vampire the Masquerade?
Yeah, so I recently picked up Vampire the Masquerade as a TTRPG to play with friends. I played a few weeks of that. I don't know if I'm going to be continuing that game yet, so we'll have to see. But actually an amazing TTRPG.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about it a bit, but I do recommend it for listeners as it's not D&D-esque. The dice system is a D8 dice system, and I don't know how else to explain that. But more importantly, it's way more about roleplay and social aspects that make up more than 50% of that game.
This is a game that I really want to play, but I have never enjoyed vampires until this one character from Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
And now that I have like a positive connection to the whole vampire thing, I am more willing to explore Vampires the Masquerade.
It's really good. Vampire the Masquerade is genuinely really
I said
fun.
vampires. I meant singular.
Yeah, also you said of the Masquerade, but it's actually
Which
just
is fun.
The Masquerade.
Well, I've never played this game.
Because it's like a sequel, I think.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh, Vampire the Masquerade.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Different context now.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
wild
combat-
what grammar can do to a sentence.
And combat in that game doesn't use a grid system or a map system at all. It's just you declare what you want to do, and the DM can say either you reasonably can or you reasonably can't, and that's it, right? So exact movements don't matter, which is really fun. I really like that game. But also over this summer, and I want to do some self-promo for a second, if you'll allow it. Also over this summer, I did a new podcast. So as you, as listeners, might expect, I'm going to do my loud presenter voice now. I've been keeping myself pretty quiet. I did singing lessons, so I know how to speak more healthily now.
Wow.
So for you as listeners, you probably have come to guess that we have not been airing episodes of The Art of Play in the last 6 months. If you're on Spotify, that's going to be a little bit different because we started putting them up on We started putting them up on Spotify over the summer, mainly because I was lazy, and also Anchor FM was garbage when I first started using it, and then they updated and it became great. So that was good. The episodes are coming up. You will be hearing this episode in early November, which will be after we finally finish uploading season 1. So for you on Spotify, this has been continuous. But over these past few months, I began working on a horror show called Welcome to the Foundation, which was an SCP-themed show where I played the role of Dr. Robin and was talking to you, the listener, as a student becoming a member of the Foundation and learning about the various SCPs we had, the experiences of people, and what you should expect as an agent or researcher. And this was all an SCP reading show. If I, in editing, do my job, so we'll be ending up quickly, I will put in some clips from that show so you can hear some experiences that you may have had as a listener there. If you want to listen to it, pop over to Spotify. The show is called Welcome to the Foundation, and go listen to either episode 1 to get an introduction, episode 6 for my favorite, or if you're coming a bit later, go take a listen to episode 16, the final episode, which had my favorite SCP I've ever covered. And that was my summer. So that show is fully released. That show's been completed. It's coming out. The last few episodes are still coming out on Spotify, but they'll be done before the year's out. And that was my entire summer. Yeah. And yeah, singing lessons were in there. And no, I'm not going to sing on mic. Hopefully.
Yeah, I'm also in your new show.
So you made it into episode 14.
Yeah, which is because
Daybreak.
Because I got back at the end of it, so I was only able to help with like a little bit of it.
You covered the story Umbra, I think it was.
I enjoyed reading it.
And you did really well. So if you want to hear Vi as well, episode 14 is in there. At the very end, Vi comes in to conclude that episode.
Yeah, my little piece of.
Yeah, so for you as listeners, you should be able to hear some clips from that show coming up next. And I think it covers everything. Welcome back to season 2 of The Art of Play. We've played lots of games, and we're excited to see what comes next. Tune in next time. We're going to be talking about game engines and the whole debacle about Unity, because that was a mess that happened 2 weeks prior to this recording session. It is, it's big. So, thank you all for watching. I've been Gaia.
Watching?
Oh, you're right. Thank you all for listening. I watched too much YouTube. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming back for season 2 of The Art of Play. I've been Gaia.
I've been Vi.
We'll see you next time. And that's it for today's episode. But what if you wanted to listen to more? Well, our new episodes come out every Thursday at 9 p.m. Atlantic, and there are 3 different ways that you can listen. If you're in the Fredericton area of New Brunswick, Canada, you can listen live on CHSR 97.9 FM through any of your radio services. If you're not in this region or you prefer using the internet, you can tune in on chsrfm.ca at the same time, 9 p.m. Atlantic. As well, we release all of our episodes on a number of podcasting platforms online, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. So if you wanted to, you could go back right now and listen to Season 1, where Vi and I do a deep dive into the fundamental concepts of game design, rather than the hardware they'll be taking up this season. And now, as promised, here is a bit of a demo of the horror podcast that I produced this summer. Welcome to the Foundation. Welcome to the Foundation, new recruit. As our newest member, there is one thing I need to tell you above all. Here at the Foundation, we handle anomalies, things that exist beyond your comprehension and threaten the world as we know it. We have one goal: secure, contain, protect. And how do we do that? Well, let's go over it. I'll be your teacher, Dr. Robin, every Sunday at 9 p.m. Atlantic. Item number: SCP-4043, SCP-507, SCP-087, SCP-294, SCP-001.
By order of the Overseer Council, the following file describes a Keter-class anomalous cognito hazard and is level 4/2316 classified. Unauthorized access is forbidden. By order of the Overseer Council, the following file describes a Keter-class anomalous cognito hazard and is level 4/2316 classified. Unauthorized access is forbidden.
Item number: SCP-2316, Level 4 Secret. Containment Class: Keter. Disruption Class: Kennic. Risk Class: Danger.
Cognito hazard warning. contains images and text that are carriers for anomalous cognitohazardous influences.
You do not recognize the bodies in the water.
Due to this, it is imperative that all personnel accessing this file be certified as having a cognitive resistance value of no less than 14.5. Should you fail an automated CRB verification, please remain calm and do not move. A member of your site's medical staff will be with you shortly.
Addendum 2316.1 Interview.
Data
You need to see this. They were your friends.
Error. Unrecognized user. Please log in to view file. Verification complete. User CRL is unacceptable.
Let me show you their faces.
Did you ever feel compelled to enter the water, like something was pulling you in?
What? No, of course not. There's nothing wrong with them. They didn't drag me in. I saw them in the water and went in myself. I needed to see them. I wanted to hear what they were saying. They're my friends.
When you entered the water, what did you see?
You do not recognize the bodies in the water.
Faces. My friends. Faces I recognized, some I didn't, but they became more familiar as I saw them. I know them my whole life, but there was something wrong with them.
Wrong with them?
Like the face of someone you see in a dream, where you can't remember it right. There's something wrong, and the way they were speaking,
Speaking? No, that's impossible. They're simply not...
not moving their mouths, but I could hear them, asking for help. They told me who they were. They told me you knew who they were. That you...
Enough of that. You're clearly succumbing to the cognito hazard. We need to get you medical attention, Agent, if you would...
Get your hands off of me! I know all their names, Harrison. I heard them speaking to me. Every single one. All it takes is one person to see them and tell people, and they'll know what you've been trying to hide. Kirk Longwood, high school,
Subdue
class
them.
of...
Get them out of here. Take them to amnestics and turn that recorder off. Please repeat the following phrase slowly and clearly into your terminal microphone. I do not recognize the bodies in the water. Running adjusted tonal variance processor. Verification incomplete. User CRB is not within acceptable limits. User CRB influenced by active cognitohazards. Please stay still. A member of your site's medical staff will be with you shortly. Terminal lockout.
Addendum 2316.2
Invalid entry. Terminal lockout.
You need to get